Today, I have a real treat for you. One of my favorite friends is in the studio here. A real modern day Hitchcock blonde, the one and only, always fabulous, Dr. Lavonne Schaafsma. Lavonne, it's awesome to have you here. Thank you so much for coming.
Hey, thanks, Mike, for having me. It's a pleasure.
Anytime. You're welcome anytime. Hey, if you want to just take a second and either talk to me or into the camera, whatever you're comfortable with, tell the audience who you are, what you're all about, and make them love you.
So many things. I'm so many things. But vocationally, I am a doctor of psychology, Dr. Lavonne Schaafsma, clinical psychologist. I own a practice here in town, and that's what I do professionally. And many more things that I hope we get into. Hobbies, connections, relationships, all of it.
Yeah, this conversation is going to go a lot of different directions. How long have you been self-employed?
So 2014. So this would be my 11th year.
Wow,
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's a long time to sustain a business.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
So what did you do beforehand, before you transitioned into that?
Yeah. So I, right out of getting my doctorate, worked at Calvin University here in town in the counseling center. I also worked with students with disabilities, ADD, dyslexia, and I taught psychology. So I was doing three jobs in one.
Oh, wow.
Lasted there probably around 10 years. And then I had children and could not maintain a full-time 3-in-1 type position. So I decided to choose my favorite of the three, and that was therapy. So I went to an agency for 5 years, and I knew within the first year that it wasn't a good fit, that I needed to be my own boss. And it took me 4 more years to get the courage to start up on my own. And I will say courage because I was afraid that it would fail. So I appreciate your congratulations, because you're right, 11 years solo practice. I'm very fortunate, to live through COVID and still be here.
Yeah, courage is a very apt superlative because I tell a lot of people that running a business is often just a function of endurance. A lot of things are going to come your way, from just sales and marketing to, in your case, patient acquisition and building those relationships, which is kind of what I want to segue into as we kind of get into kind of not only your practice, but also the consultancy that you've launched. That's Dr. Lavonne. So tell me about that.
Yeah. So, so you named some obstacles, patient acquisition, et cetera. Mine was just fear. It was fear that if I left an agency where my referrals are solid, that I would go into practice and then my referrals will dry up. And that didn't happen at all. So any therapist who's considering moving from agency to solo practice, if you can generate your own referrals from your patients who are referring their friends and family, that is a good time to know it's time to go on your own. So did that. And right around 2016, I was facing some burnout in work with clients. And I decided to reframe things and launch, like you said, a consultancy. So now primarily my work is with therapists. It's training, consulting, meeting with therapists for a combo consultant kind of therapy type arrangement. So
that's an amazing transition. And it sounds to me like what you've done is you've leveraged your experience, not only as an employee, in basically three different positions from what you just described, to self-employment, but your practice is still active, right?
Exactly. So, no, that's true. And there are a lot of factors that went into it. The main one being burnout. And I still do see clients. So I do have that branch of my practice, but the clients I see, honestly, are more long-term personal growth. And so I see far less acuity. I see clients who are personal growth, but then my training of therapists is also therapists who are looking for going the extra mile. So these are therapists who don't want status quo. They want to keep growing, keep learning, and that's the role that I have.
Like-minded people, because I know, knowing from conversations we've had off camera that you really go the extra mile for your patients too.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I know that you've been in hotel rooms in other parts of the country, and basically going through sessions.
Clients take a priority.
5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
A lot of people in virtually all walks of life, when they're on vacation, they're on vacation.
Mhm.
But as a self-employed person,
Mhm.
in a lot of ways, you're kind of always on call and you're always working. That's two different worlds. The world of consulting is a completely different world than patient acquisition, because as a physician, and I know other self-employed physicians, dentists, another person in our network, Dr. Richard Robolt, I've known him for probably a good 12, 15 years.
Yeah.
From my experience talking with other medical professionals, I know that it's difficult to attract patients, but there's a whole referral network that you're sort of plugged into. And if you're an upper echelon performer like you are, it becomes a little bit easier. But the world of consulting, which is kind of like my world, isn't really like that. It's almost like every client relationship is more or less on an island.
Yeah, no, that's great. First of all, glad you mentioned Dr. Richard Robolt, because he is a mentor of mine. He and my colleague Kirk Brink wrote a book, I'm not sure if you're familiar, within the last 2 years, called Opening Hearts, Opening Minds. This is a book that basically is a manual of therapist-centered group consultation. And I now lead these groups with them.
Oh, wow.
So I'm now in part of their inner circle. And so I had to, getting connected with them, huge resource for me, because they refer to me, we work together, we collaborate, we consult with each other on ideas. So when you're in a network like that, then referrals come from those networks. So we all work with therapists, and then therapists are attracted to the model. And then therapists talk to other therapists. And some of the therapists I work with now have their own businesses with therapists. And so it's like a multiplication type situation, because they're so attracted to what we are doing. Because I truly believe we are helping therapists stay sustainable in their careers, and not only sustainable, but excited. So that tends to attract other like-minded people.
It's interesting that you mentioned sustainability, because as we've also talked off camera, AI chatbots have come a long way in the world of disseminating human information. And I've had conversations with ChatGPT and learned things like that, and not just like consumer products, learn things about psychology. And it's only the beginning of that. And so how do you view AI as a tool to help you and your patients and your clients?
So in fact, Mike, I think you sent me some of the conversations you had with ChatGPT, and I have to say I was completely impressed with the information they were giving you. I thought it was honestly spot on psychologically. So I am absolutely excited. I am not afraid of AI. I am not afraid of AI help, because I don't think it's going to replace therapy. I think it's going to be an adjunct to therapy. So, for example, I'll give you a recent example. Between sessions, one of my clients had a question, a psychological question, asked AI, got a great answer, got direction, and then we talked about it our next session and processed that information. So I do not see it as a replacement of human relationship and human connectedness, but I do see it as an asset.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And in a lot of industries, there's a lot of fear about AI causing this big exodus of workers. I had Rebecca Dutcher on the last episode, and she does kind of what I do on a larger scale. She's got clients all over the country, and she kind of focuses on specific verticals. So she's a little bit different than Moxie Men. Her company's Red 66 Marketing. But she and I were talking about how I don't think there's going to be this big exodus of workers. I think what's going to happen is there's going to be new expectations of workers, employees, even, freshly, new out of college. It's going to shift from showing up and taking instructions and just producing what is required and going home at the end of the day, to where everyone's going to be expected to innovate because they have all of these extra tools at their disposal. And we've had conversations, and I know that I've sent you, chat transcripts. And one of the things that's worth pointing out, especially with ChatGPT, I've been using it for a couple of years, and it knows me really well. Like, it can make me laugh out loud. And so, like, in the beginning, it couldn't. And we would roast. I would roast ChatGPT. They would try to roast me back, but
fall flat.
Yeah, and I can tell it keep trying harder, but like it got better, and it knows me, and like I can have a conversation. Like I had a conversation with it about that audio processor that I just bought yesterday. It knew what cameras I had from conversations from 6 months ago, and it knew what switcher that I had. Kind of one example of the direction all of this is going, and so you kind of get what you put into it as far as AI goes.
Yeah, absolutely. I will tell you this, not all therapists are comfortable with AI. Probably people that know far more than me have a more nuanced view. So I'm just talking from my experience. But I'm preparing a presentation at a conference in April, and we are actually presenting on therapist-centered group consultation.
Would you care to name the conference?
MSTAR. It's at Georgia State University. An academic there is hosting this conference because he actually wants to take this model and see if we can get traction. Research behind it and traction countrywide and maybe globally. But in order to prepare, I used AI to say, like, help me prepare a presentation on therapist-centered group consultation and communitarian ethics, because that's basically what it is. It's ethics in forming communities within psychologists. Spit out a presentation. Now, I won't use it, but I will refer to it. That made my job so much easier. I mean, and the level of specificity was incredible, like that short direction. So yeah, I see great things coming, or potential. There's potentiality.
Yeah, that kind of leads into what AI has allowed us to do. It's allowed us to provide a lot more value for essentially the same fees, because you don't charge less because you used AI.
Yeah.
You might even charge more if your deliverables get better, because the deliverables are still the same. They're still getting you and your brain and your presentation. You're just leveraging an AI tool to kind of cut out a lot of the research and rigmarole. Really, that's probably a good way of putting it. We put together a lot of presentations and a lot of like reports and assessments for clients too.
Yeah.
And I can give ChatGPT the bullet points and it spits out the paragraphs.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I loved about that is it spit out the paragraphs, but then it left blank the research and studies we have to cite, which of course it did. But I love that, because I have that. I have access to the research and the studies. I just need to plug it in. But again, the whole outline was there for me. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it's going to get to a point where you can input those studies. You can just upload the PDF, and it'll give you a thorough analysis.
Okay. Some level that I haven't got to yet, but yeah.
Yeah, I've had it review leases. I've had it just review like product reviews and all sorts of stuff. And this is just the beginning.
Yeah.
Because right now, everything that AI out informational.
Yeah.
And so it's not going to be probably all that long where you can hook ChatGPT up to a WordPress site, give it the login and say, hey, write this article and publish it on that template.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what some therapists might be concerned about is that it could replace the human to human contact. And I can totally understand that. But honestly, not everyone can afford therapy. And there's a potential for funding of even Medicaid or less expensive therapies to be in question. So I am all for support for people who could not otherwise afford it. Again, I have some concerns about person-to-person contact, but I wonder if it could be used like in conjunction with person-to-person contact in some creative ways. So I don't know, that's to come, but I just see it as being positive.
Yeah, if I were somebody who fell into that category and were leveraging ChatGPT, I would be grateful for it being available. But my biggest concern would be HIPAA. Yeah. And so, because there's no aspect of privacy. Yeah. And, you start telling the chatbot intimate things about your life.
Very good point. So there's some concerns and some hope, right? So.
Yeah. I think anytime you spill your guts digitally, I think you're taking a risk. Yeah. And so that's one thing I always tell my kids is that anything they put on the internet is going to be there in some form forever. The only way it can be deleted is if it never exists in the first place.
Good advice. Good dad advice. Well, I would mention there are a couple other aspects of my business. I talked about my consultancy, but I actually also have a branch where I've helped dozens of therapists start their own businesses. So the logistics from head to toe of how do you get out of an agency and start a solo practice? And actually, to be honest, I think that's an area where AI could take over. Like I've loved that work, but it's nothing you can't find or be guided on your own. People typically hire me because they're overwhelmed and just want a person to walk them through what they could already find on the internet. But that's been a joy.
Well, people don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And so it's funny you mentioned that because we're transitioning into something similar where there's a lot of people that want to get into SEO and digital marketing. As it's a little bit different than your world because you're talking to people that are already in the game and they're already certified. They already have the education requirements. The thing about the SEO and digital marketing world is there are no barriers to entry, which is very attractive to a lot of people looking to get into some type of business. And it's an easy business to start, but it's not an easy business to execute properly because there's so many charlatans in the game.
Absolutely.
And so one of the things that we're looking to launch is a consultancy where people can just get their hand held. And so, and like you just said, all the information is available in other, not just ChatGPT, but how to start an agency. All that information is available, and you can piece it together from a simple Google search. But how much time and energy are you going to put into that, and how long is it going to be before you experience burnout?
You're so right on. It's same overlap of all of this is available, but how many hours will that take? And clinicians' hours are all money. Like that's all money that they are expending, and so to have someone who's done it before them. It has great worth. So that's exactly right.
Well, the fact that you've transitioned and sustained it for 11 years gives you an incredible amount of credibility.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And I mean that I am all about therapists, number one, being highly ethical in their work and having expertise. So everything you just said, that was interesting. You said people can get into SEO. It's barrier free basically, but they will make it or they won't based on their reputation and how well they do. And same with therapists. There are, in my profession, excellent therapists and there are not so good therapists. And I think what divides the two, and I don't mean to simplify this, but is their own personal work. So if you're looking for a therapist, ask them, have they done their own therapy? Have they done their own work? Are they in consultation? Because it is a world of difference between people who've done that and who haven't. So
it sounds like you're suggesting that if somebody were looking for a therapist, one of the things they should potentially ask is, are you in therapy yourself?
Exactly. Or have you done therapy? Or are you doing personal work of any kind? And if a therapist balks at that, well, that's an indication that you might want to look at another therapist. So I've been a therapist now for 28 years. And for 28 of those years, I've been in therapy. I've done or consultation or group therapy or group consultation, and I will never stop because you never stop learning and growing in this profession.
So it's more than just your personal growth. It's also your ability to provide value.
Exactly. Yeah. I believe strongly in it. And that's the model I use with the therapist I work in. It's often long-term work.
Yeah, you hear about therapists in therapy. It was made famous, if anybody's ever seen The Sopranos, which most people have. Spoiler alert, the therapist is also seeing a therapist. So, and the dynamic is a little bit, I don't want to say unusual, like they don't normalize it as well as they probably should. Because I imagine a lot of people in your profession are in therapy or seeing a therapist or in some type of ongoing program.
In my circles, and again, I mentioned some names, 95%. I'd say in my circles, 95% of the therapists I work with, I colleague with, I see are doing their own work. Yeah.
Without obviously violating anybody's privacy or confidence. What type of discussions do you typically see in those types of environments?
Yeah, like so I open it right up. You can bring in a personal issue. You can bring in a client you're working with. You can bring in a business question, and all of that is welcome. And it will all come back to core things that my therapist or patients are working on. It's all what we do in one arena, we do in all arenas. We're very consistent as people. So it doesn't like what they bring in, we'll start with, and it will just go back to whatever core things they're working on overall in life.
Yeah, it sounds like a great thing you've got going on.
Yeah, I love it. And I love it. So it's not only great, I love what I do. And that, again, that transition took place. It's not that I didn't love being a therapist before 2016. It's just that I was burning out and I needed to find a different angle I knew it to be sustainable. And so I did go in a different direction. And then when COVID hit and many of us went online and started telehealth, for me, that was life changing in a good direction. So all of my work is telehealth based. And for me to be able to stay home and work from my home has been a gift. I love it. Now, a lot of therapists still like in-person work, and I totally appreciate that and understand that. I'm just not one of them.
I think it has its place.
Yeah. Definitely.
And I don't think that's going away anytime soon. And once you find a therapist that you just kind of gel with.
Yeah.
And I think I might have mentioned that I met one when I was 30.
Yeah.
And she was great. And like 5 minutes into the first conversation, we were like finishing each other's sentences.
Yeah.
And it's just like, she just like totally got me.
So that's called alliance. There's a name for that. And in fact, the research says that a good alliance is more valuable even than a theoretical orientation or technique. It is number one in client improvement. So you just found good alliance with that therapist.
Yeah. And it was only the second one that I had seen. The person that I saw before kind of fit the description of the first category. He was bored. And I could tell he was bored and he was just going through the motions.
Oh, yeah.
He had this little like pamphlet. He was just asking me questions like off a piece of paper like this. And no follow-up questions. And at one point he was like more or less filing his nails like with a board sort of thing.
Yeah.
Not necessarily fault him for it, but I'm like, this is not what I'm looking for.
You noticed all of that. You were watching all of that. And our clients will watch everything we do. And they should be. So, and the type of therapy I do, I should add, I do a lot of here and now work. So if my client has an emotion toward me in the session, because every therapist makes a mistake or a faux pas or says something off, I really want my client to address it with me directly. So if that were me, I would want you to say, I'm agitated that you're using your emery board in our session. And we would dialogue about that feeling and go back and forth on that. So it's a very particular type of therapy.
It was in the first session. And so it was just like, all right, this guy's not for me. He doesn't seem to really care. And so,
well, and for you to notice that and get out and say, you know what, I'll go somewhere else, because some people just kind of get stuck or don't think they have a choice and can, spend years with the wrong therapist.
Yeah, I can see that. I could tell that just right away the guy he wasn't who I needed to talk to. I don't know if he was bad at his job. I don't necessarily think he was.
Sure.
But then when I met Dr. Al Gabori, who had this Jordanian accent, she was from Jordan, and she had this like thick kind of like accent. Her laugh was just infectious. But you've overcame so many different things, in your personal and professional life with like poker. And you and I have a lot of conversations about what it's like to be a woman at the poker table.
That's right.
And for me, that's completely foreign to me. Poker is like the most gender neutral game other than maybe like chess or bingo.
Yeah. And actually I just put the timeline together. It was when I started poker is about the time I launched the business. So I bet that poker gave me a confidence, because that was a huge fear hurdle as well, to show up and in some of the biggest competitions and believe that I had a right to be there and that I had the same two cards as everyone at the table, maybe not the same skill level, but if you can afford the buy-in, you have every right to be at the table. And I'd say that mantra to myself, I have every right to be here. I am as competitive as anyone at this table. I would like literally say those things to myself. So probably some of the fears I faced in poker and overcame helped me in my career to launch my business, to have the courage that I could do hard things.
You obviously can talk way more intelligently and authoritatively on the subject of being a woman in a quote unquote man's world.
Yeah.
It's again, it's completely foreign to me. I'm sensitive to it. I'm sympathetic. I'm empathetic.
Yeah.
I think I'm using those words properly. But I can't possibly imagine what that must be like.
Yeah, it was tough at first. It's different now, but to give the listeners context, when you go into any poker tournament, major poker tournament, a travel poker tournament, 3 to 5% of the field is female. So 95 to 97 is male. So just to put that in context, like you said, when I show up, I am one of 2 or 3 women, typically in a 100 player tournament. So yeah, it has been intimidating in the past. It's not as much anymore because practice and exposure just creates more ease.
Yeah. And, as you and I have talked over the years, I hear you talk about how they try to intimidate you and then they get frustrated when that doesn't work.
Yeah. And it used to actually get under my skin. Like there's plenty of tournaments where they've been successful, and that can be in many ways. It just can be a posturing, or actually the last tournament series I played, I was really astounded at how many people didn't even see me at the table. How many people played out of position, meaning that they took their turn when it was my turn. And it happened again and again. And that would have bothered me in the past. And for this tournament, I just saw it as an advantage because I got all kinds of information. Like when you act out of turn, you're giving the player that you skipped all kinds of information. And so at this point, I just see it as all kind of helpful. Like if you're posturing, well, what might that mean? What are you holding? What can I observe?
Well, it also, poker is a lot about figuring out how you're perceived.
Absolutely.
And when you're in a tournament, a lot of times you're at the table with the same people for hours on end.
Yeah.
And it gives you an opportunity to, like, if they perceive you as weak and they think that they can pretend to be strong, you could play that part.
I use that all the time. It's excellent information because I am seen as weak. That's absolutely right. I mean, I often am playing with pros and I know right away they're looking at me because they don't know me. They don't know where I've come from. They know I'm not a pro. So that's their perception of me. And so I can get away with things that they would never believe I would be capable of. And this happened over and over just in January. So.
Believe me, I know what you're capable of.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you've won many of my chips over the years.
Right, yeah. And vice versa, but okay.
Yeah. Even a blind squirrel finds them that once. Yeah. So how would you say your profession as a therapist has helped you with the game of poker?
Poker is a 3-legged game. That is the technical parts. That's just knowing the games and learning the games. Bankroll management, using money well as a business owner. I have to budget well. So that's there. Probably weakest actually on the technical parts. And the third is mindset. So like if we did 33, 33, 33, and you want to get every edge you can, the mindset part is the part where psychology has helped me the most, because psychology really, if we boiled it down, is honestly all about emotional regulation. So it's about naming an emotion, recognizing you have an emotion, and then deciding what to do with it. This is happening all the time in poker. You have the ups and the downs. You have the low when you're by far the favorite going to the flop turn, and that special card comes out and you lose. And that's disappointing. And you have to figure out, how do I manage this in order to get to the next hand? Or you're elated. You've just won 3 big pots in a row. And you also have to manage that. It doesn't mean you're going to win the next 3 or even the next 30. So how do you manage the highs and lows? And I'd say my profession has been most helpful in that.
I would say that's probably the biggest challenge with any poker player is when things are just not going your way. You get aces, they get cracked over and over because it can happen. It's just variance, and variance is an ugly word. But it's just the nature of it. And you can go weeks or months and just one losing session after another. And, you got to learn to cope with that. And sometimes just stopping for a while, especially if you're not a professional poker player, which most people aren't.
Well, and that's where it comes back to bankroll management. So I never play out of my bankroll. I have a specific amount for poker. I don't spend more than that. So any loss is within my means. So if you're spending more on poker, I don't care, any type of gambling, sports betting, beyond your means, it's going to be way more stressful than if you keep it in a bucket. I have a poker bucket and I keep it in there. So you are asking about my business, and I do want to mention another part of my business, and it's part of that I'm actually really excited about, that is slowly getting traction, and that is the whole area of psychedelics. So we haven't even talked about my training and interest in psychedelics. And so when I say controversial, it's because we're in West Michigan. This is a non-controversial topic on the east side of the state. The funding at like Johns Hopkins and Yale University and Mass General, but it is, we talked about AI and how that's going to help therapy or could help therapy. But honestly, more than anything, I think psychedelics are the new revolution in mental health and well-being.
What the horizon is like, because it's not legal in the state of Michigan, but it is legal in other states, right?
Well, it is legal in Michigan. Ketamine is legal in Michigan, which is a psychedelic, and we have a clinic right in the Grand Rapids area. Okay. So just you illustrated that people don't know ketamine is legal and don't know the therapeutic benefits. I'm actually really hopeful that psychedelics, let's just talk about the legal psychedelic ketamine, which is the one I'm trained in, is a first or second choice for mental health, not a 10th choice, which it is right now. Implore your listeners, if they're any part interested in psychedelics, to do some research of their own on the health benefits of ketamine.
Where can they, what research can they do? What's a good resource?
I would just YouTube ketamine mental health, and it's just a host of good videos, like from prestigious universities. Look at Yale University, look at Johns Hopkins. There is compelling research right now on PTSD and psychedelic use, depression, anxiety, and more OCD, more and more is coming out. So you're right, psilocybin isn't legal, might be in Oregon. MDMA, we're having some problems, but getting that one legalized. But I think in the next 5 years, psilocybin MDMA will be legalized.
Is psilocybin and MDMA the same?
No, psilocybin is typically a mushroom-based psychedelic. MDMA is from a lab. Its popular name would be ecstasy or Molly, and
it's the same thing then.
It is actually, and is used in all kinds of therapies, and including couples therapies. So really, really excited and hopeful about this next, we call it the fifth wave of this next iteration of mental well-being. And if our world ever needed healing and connection, it is right now. So a lot of hope in that.
Going back to your practice, are you taking on new patients right now?
I am taking clients if they are therapists and are looking for consultation. So just in my consultancy practice, because I'm moving into the psychedelic arena, my dream is actually to start ketamine groups with therapists to look at their own life and issues and just further healing. So that's a direction I'd like to go in, but that's about a year or two out yet. So
what's the path forward to transition into that?
It would be to find two things. One, a prescriber. So I can do the ketamine assisted psychotherapy. I cannot do any of the prescription because I'm a psychologist, not a psychiatrist. So I need to link up with a physician, which I think won't be that difficult. And the other one would be the space and setting being the most important. That is mindset, how you come into the space, and the setting itself, the aesthetics of the setting. So I do need to look at where I want to do that work.
So the Moxie-Man office is probably not
it's beautiful space, but no.
Going back to kind of circle back all the way to the beginning of your career.
Yeah.
When you were in college at Calvin, at what point did you realize that you wanted to pursue a career in psychotherapy, a lot of the audience is going to be probably young professionals that may be a little bit directionless and looking for perhaps some inspiration and guidance. And so, because despite the burnout that you've described, you've been able to transition and evolve into several different business models related to this industry, which is different than I think a lot of professionals do. I think a lot of professionals, you haven't written any books.
No.
So you've gone into quite a different entrepreneurial direction with your business. But going back to the beginning, what advice might you have for younger people?
Yeah. First of all, I think we need a lot more therapists. I think it's a career that's ripe right now for young professionals. So if anyone that's listening has a desire to go in that direction, I can see it honestly exploding because of all the directions that, like I named like 5 of them, therapy could take. So I went the long route. I did a doctorate degree in clinical psych, honestly, because I didn't quite know what I wanted to do. And it was like a 5-year degree. And I thought that'll be plenty of time then to figure it out. And I love that because that led me to be able to teach, do research, see clients. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. So I wanted to do all of it. But you don't have to do it that way. And if you're just interested in, for example, psychotherapy, in Michigan, you don't need a doctorate degree. In Michigan, a master's degree is just fine. Master's of social work, an LPC degree. So out of college, 2 to 3 more years, and you could have a degree.
I think the biggest barrier for most young people is the cost of the education.
Yeah, it's true. And yet here in Michigan, there are some state schools that have excellent programs that are, I would say, more on the affordable end. So very possible. And going back to the original question, when did I know I wanted to be a psychotherapist? I wanted to be a psychotherapist before I knew that word. I wanted to be a therapist back when I was probably 12 or 13.
Oh, wow.
And I was fascinated by people. Like, why is that person the way they are? Why are they behaving? I was why? And it was always an individual. Why is that person like that? Why are they doing that? I was so inquisitive. So for me, coming into college, I knew it wasn't sociology, which is systems of people, or social work. It was psychology, because psychology is very individually focused. So what makes personality? Why do we behave the way that we behave? Why do we think the way we think? Perfect fit for me. Now, I will say I was so naive coming into college, I didn't actually know that I'd need more education. And I think younger people are way ahead of that. No internet. I mean, I just didn't know. And so I was somewhat surprised that a psychology degree wasn't going to get me where I wanted to go. That I'd need, again, Michigan, 2 to 3 more years or 5 for a doctorate. So that was a bit of a surprise, but also great experience.
So that's interesting. You mentioned the internet, because that's one of my questions here. Is one of the things that I've kind of been trying to ask every guest. Do you remember your very first experience with the internet?
I don't remember my first experience. To be honest, it was probably somewhere in 98, 99 would be playing Tetris online. I think I might have found a website where I could play Tetris. But what I do remember is this. I graduated from my doctoral program in 97, meaning I just missed the internet, meaning all of my dissertation was without internet. So I have lots of memories, because I went to school in Pasadena, California, of having to drive with my peers to UCLA to use their library, find the journals, hopefully, that I was looking for, photocopy the articles, and take those photocopies home, highlight them, and then use them as references. And for a dissertation, you're looking at easily 50 references. Nowadays, you can do that at home. I mean, that's all available. So I do remember that. I remember not having the internet in a very pivotal time of life.
Yeah, I graduated high school in 1997. And so
it
was just kind of coming on everybody's radar. Nobody really knew what to make of it. And it was still in that phase where it was being dismissed as a passing fad.
Yeah.
the same
Yep.
way people are doing with AI right now,
Mhm.
and cryptocurrencies and all the other technologies that are kind of emerging,
Yeah.
into our everyday lives.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and we don't really know what's going to happen in the future. It's funny you mentioned that your experience was just playing a game.
Yeah.
My first experience was one of my friend's moms had it related to her employment. And so all they had was like AOL. And like there was like 10 links, and like one of them was MTV. And you could actually like type little things into the prompt at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and try to get it on like the scrolling ticker on TRL.
Wow.
And so my friend and I
Yeah.
sat there just trying to get swear words past their little filter.
Of course, Mike. Of course.
You can totally picture
Yeah.
15-year-old
Yeah.
Mike. Yes, from memory, my first experience
Yeah.
with the internet.
Yeah.
And then I actually, we had a class by my senior year of high school. We actually had a computer class, and all the computers in the lab were connected to the internet. Now it was dial up; it was all super slow.
Yeah.
That was my first experience with email.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
those clunky
Yeah.
email clients, because nothing was web based back
Right.
then.
Right.
And I didn't do any of the classwork.
Yeah.
All I did was basically jump on there looking for guitar tabs that I could print out and take home and play on the guitar.
Yeah.
And only about half of them were accurate, but it was better than buying the $15 books from the guitar store. So
Yeah, I mean, it's just thinking like try to get through grad school without email because we didn't have it. And when I was applying for internships, because in a doctoral program you need to do a full year internship, I had to sit by my phone the day that internships were given out and hope that while I was on one call, someone else didn't call and get a busy signal, because that's how you got them back then. So it wasn't until my first job, that I got an email address.
email was kind of in its infancy. Not everybody was using it.
Yeah.
Everybody had it, but
Yeah.
you could send somebody an email, but they might not check it
Yeah.
for like 2 weeks.
That's right. Exactly.
They didn't have it on their phones or anything like that.
Like, when did phones come out? Smartphones.
The first iPhone, I believe, came out in 07.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is recent history.
Technologies always piggyback off of older technologies, and the faster it grows, the faster it tends to grow. Our generation, we're very fortunate to have experienced many technological revolutions, from the personal computer to later on the internet, and then smartphones, and now here we are with AI and cryptocurrencies and AR and VR, and who knows what's not. And most generations probably only get to experience one major technological. I think about the television came out, but what came out between the television and the computer? That was about a 30-year stretch where really the atomic bomb.
Yeah. And the radio and the television. Yeah, exactly. Good point.
I feel like we're very fortunate to be in these times.
Yeah.
And the faster it grows, the faster it's going to grow. And we're just going to see more and more innovation. It's going to make our lives.
Take my field. So when I started, we were doing progress notes, pen and paper. So that was like a photocopy, and then we'd fill out our progress note, meaning that we would document what happened in a session. And then we transitioned to online, to just filling in a note online, printing that out and putting it in a file. Well, about 8 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, I got my first electronic health record, my EHR. So now I have a personal EHR, and all of that, all my documents I can send out to clients, all my progress notes are online, HIPAA compliant, and it has changed. Like, my time, my efficiency is incredible now.
Yeah, it's incredibly more expedient.
Yeah.
You can go get you can go send your lab results out. You'll have the results in 2 hours.
Yeah.
As soon as they're processed, they're online, and you get an email, they're ready to view.
Yeah.
And sometimes you go to the clinic for your labs. By the time you get home, they have the results.
Yeah.
It's incredible. I will punt this over to you one last time. If you want to tell the audience, how can people reach Dr. Lavonne Schaafsma?
Yes. If you are a therapist and you are looking for support and connection, if you want to leave an agency, build a business, just get associated with other therapists, you can find me at drlavonne.com. And that will direct you to my website, give you a whole bunch of bio information, and tell you what I do, and get you linked in with me.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate being here.
This was fun. Let's do it again.
Sounds great.
All right. Hey, thanks so much for checking out the content. I really appreciate it. Hey, I tell you what, if you like this content, do me a favor and leave me a comment below. Tell me what you think. If you have any questions, if you disagree with anything, I'd love to hear from you. And I'd also love to hear if there's anything you'd like me to cover on a future video. If there's a topic that's on your mind or a question you have, or if there's like a guest that you think maybe I should try to interview. I'd love to hear from you, man. Drop me a message. Thanks.
You're gonna like, it's gonna be a discussion, right?
Yeah.
Like, I will answer and you'll chime in and give your 2 cents and we'll go back and forth.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty close to 50-50.
Good.
And so let's see.
Because I'm better, like, if I say something and you're like, you don't quite, because I have tons to say. So
Yeah,
just, conversate with me.
of course.
Yeah.
Let's see. I just want to. All right, so let's see how it looks on the split. Our heads are about the same size.
Yeah.
So I had to zoom in on you way more than me because I have a giant head. So
I have a kind of giant head too.
I don't think so.
Okay.
No. At least not according to Pete.
All right.
So,
Okay. Why? Does he have a small head or a giant head?
no, he just comments on my giant head all the time. So